evaluations. I've been looking at these for, as long as there's been computers and even before. And through various versions of our own student course evaluations. And I've looked at them, my own, and all of yours, and lots of other people's over a period of evaluation from the point of view of the chair for 12 years, and from the point of view of the dean, and from the point of view of the BPAA. And then I've been on the senior faculty review for the last 3 years, so I've looked at tons of these, and I just want to give you what, some kind of plain common sense advice about how you can look at them and get something out of them that'll help you do your job better. So, first of all, your attitude, okay, you can make them work for you if you don't argue with them. You would be surprised when I sent out the invitation to this meeting, some people, more than one person, emailed me back and said, yeah, but students are just so inaccurate in the things they say in those course evaluations, it really doesn't do any good to read them. Because I know what I'm doing in class, and what they respond is what I'm actually doing. Okay, well, then they will probably not help you. But even if they're wrong and you're right about what they say, you've got a public relations problem. So if nothing else, you need to help them understand what it is you're doing, so that they're not misinterpreting. So if they don't think you're clear and you think you're clear, it's probably clearer to you than it is to them. So arguing with them, it is entertaining, and it sort of takes the emotional freight off for a while. Doesn't really help you very much. Everybody knows. Everyone who's ever going to evaluate you knows that you can have a bad class. There can be a class that comes together that just doesn't gel. And there may be a person in there who pulls it in the wrong direction, and it doesn't matter where you are in your career, first year, 49th year, that can happen. And so everybody knows, in looking at your course evaluations, that there can be an anomaly in there that's really kind of just a quirk of fate. But you can't have just a quirk of fate for every single solitary course evaluation. So I'm not really going to talk to you about strategies for getting better evaluations, and henceforth better portfolios. I really want to talk about this is, how can we look at this and figure out how to be better teachers? What are they telling us that we can actually make use of in the classroom? And I think that will eventually result in better evaluations if that's the goal. But, okay, kids don't know as much as you do. That is true. They don't know as much about teaching as you do. They don't know the politics of the department, or they don't know why you're the one who has a 7:45 a.m. class, or why you're using that book. They don't know that stuff. They don't know your discipline, of course. But for the most part, I've read thousands of these, as I said, and for the most part, especially in the written comments, they're trying to help you. The question on the written comment is, what can this teacher do to improve instruction? And so as a consumer, they're saying, well, how about this? And maybe they don't know pedagogy the way you do. Maybe they're introverted and they don't like group work. Or maybe they're extroverted and they don't like lecture. Or maybe there's something about your personality that doesn't exactly click with them. But they will tell you some truth that's valuable to you, that you can use to actually be a better teacher. And their perspective is important, because they're the consumer. So it's just like, if you have somebody do a focus group on Nikes, and they say, yeah, the toes hurt me. So you can say, well, get bigger shoes. Or you can say, well, let's see what's wrong with the toe of the Nike and see if we can fix it. So looking at it from the point of view of getting feedback from the people who are trying to make use of what you're telling them, I think is important. And of course, they don't know as much as you do. And sometimes I think maybe the vehicle of the course evaluation makes them feel empowered to say things to you that they wouldn't say in face to face. And sometimes they come off a little brash, and you think, that was such a sweet class, and they were so bold in their evaluations. It seems like it's sort of a different personality that's coming back at you from them. But for the most part, I think they're really trying to give you some good information. Okay, now the fact that you care about the course evaluations enough to trudge over here at the end of the day, I think is huge. And there are a lot of people, not necessarily at Lee, but university worldwide, who just throw these things away. Don't look at them, you don't want to learn from them, because they're painful and they're irritating, and they don't want to do anything differently than the way they're doing it, so I don't care. They got tenure, whatever. I'm not worried about them, so they just don't look at them. But you obviously care about them, or you wouldn't have trudged over here, and so I think that's a really strong point in your favor. Okay, everybody will tell you this, and I think you know it intuitively, but it's a little bit harder to do emotionally, and that is disregard the outliers. People who adore you and people who despise you are both wrong. So you do not need to listen to them. You need to listen to that big middle swath of people who are trying to communicate to you something about your class. And I put this on there, your evaluation team will ignore them. So I know a lot of people get nervous because one kid makes a really stabbing comment, or there's one person in this class of 12 that's giving you the bottom score on everything. People who look at your evaluations know that. They know that the outliers should be ignored as well. And so don't ever get scared about that really low person, or that really, hostile remark. And also don't get overly confident about the one really good statement, or the one person who thinks you walk on water. Because when you look at these over and over again, and you look at everybody's and not just your own, you do start to look for what's the trend, what are most people saying about this person, what's the overall consensus, and not just those extremes. Okay, I know that you've looked at these and you probably know all this, but I think there's a little bit of confusion about what these things mean. So, for the first of all, the first three questions, I always just skip them. They're just to help you sort of get a picture of what kind of people are in your class, what kind of categories of people are in your class, and how they might evaluate you differently. At least that's the theory. So, over here, the course stats, that's results of this particular course for you for this semester. Your faculty stats are all your courses for this semester. So sometimes mine are always the same because I only teach one class usually, so those first two columns, those first two lines are the same. So this is all about you. This is this particular course. So if you've taught Chemistry 111 several times and you're trying something new and you want to see how that went, you want to look at that, you want to see how that one particular class went. But mostly this is what you're really interested in, which is how did you do this semester across the board, not only in one class. And if there's a big difference between these, then you did something right in one class, something wrong in the rest, or vice versa. Then the department statistics, these are all the courses that are assigned to your department, the evaluation of all the courses that are assigned to your department. And then the tenure stats, if you're tenured, you're being compared in this line to everybody else who's tenured. If you're not tenured in this line, you're being compared to everybody else who is not tenured. This was a big debate before because people feel like there's a difference somehow, that non-tenured faculty may get lower evaluations, and so they should be compared against other non-tenured faculty. That tenured faculty are more experienced, and therefore they should get higher evaluations. So those were stripped out, so you can see how you compare to other people in your tenure category. So tenured or not tenured, you're being compared with other people like you. And then this is the whole university for all courses, all departments, tenured and non-tenured. Okay, this particular one, this is number one, question number one, and has different values across the top than the others. So this is a core class. So how many of your classes were core classes, or was this a core class, or a major or minor requirement, major or minor elective, general elective, and none means They just took it because they like you, or they needed a class at 2 o'clock, or the book was cheap, or they had some other motive that's not covered by these requirements. Okay, and then the statistical terms. And I'll have to say it's so interesting to me when I went to third-year reviews and 10-year reviews, the very different way different departments approach these statistics. For some departments, the analysis presented by the chair is very statistical, and they'll talk about the standard deviation, and they'll talk about how many points in the standard deviation would they consider, blah, 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 have this big chart, and then, people from English, not so much, kind of get a big overview of this, and really, if you're a statistician, you probably can't just get a big overview. You can't keep yourself from delving into the statistics. But I think for our purposes, for improving instruction, it's better if you can pull yourself out of the weeds of the statistics and look for the big picture. See what kind of general trends you're having. Then, number 2, again, this is one that I always skip, just because it doesn't really, I don't know, it's kind of interesting, but it doesn't really tell you very much that can help you improve. But this is, I would rate my personal investment of time and effort in this course. The idea here is if kind of people say they don't put any effort into it and your evaluations are bad, that it's their fault, not yours, because they're not trying, or something along those lines. But anyway, these values across the top are different again. Poor, average, above average, very good, and exceptional. And again, I don't think you're not going to be judged by this, and it's not going to help or hurt your teaching, whatever. And this one, I attended class, kind of the same kind of thing. And this means almost never. And you see the small percentage of people who admit to almost never attending class. We know who you are. I was just there that day they gave out the form. I didn't know. Less than half of the classes, almost half, most of the classes, I'm sorry, yeah, and every class. Look at those people. We know they weren't there every single time. They weren't there every single time. Okay, so, anyway. Okay, when you get this form back, let me pass these out. This is a hybrid pieced together of some different ones, but it'll give us a chance. Let me give this one to you because it's already torn. I'm not sure I have enough of these still. I just didn't think you were coming.
Were we supposed to RSVP?
No, you weren't.
That was only read from the cookies.
Yeah. Okay, this is my strategy when I look at these. I'm not a statistics person, and so this page kind of freaks me out. So, I start by comparing myself to my most important peer group on all questions, which for me is the department, because my course is embedded in the department in it, so I want to know how my teaching compares to other people who are teaching the same students I am in sort of the same context. So, I look first at the department statistics. I look at all of them. I look at how I'm compared to everybody. But I think that's your most important for me. That's the most important peer group for the moment. You will eventually, of course, be compared to the whole university. So if your department happens to be low, so you look great, but your department compared to the university looks bad, you want to think about that too. But I think your most important little group there is with your department. Then I look for questions that are above or below for me. So either something that I've done really well on and I went down, or something that I've done really poorly on that I'm getting better, or, if you look at the absolute terms here, you're always going to feel good about yourself because we're almost always pretty much between 3 and a 4. So you're either good or excellent. somewhere between good and excellent, but, but we really need to look at where you're different from the rest of the people in your peer group. So, your lowest score may be a 3.5, your lowest score may be a 4.0, but you still need to look at this in terms of, am I going up and down, up or down in these areas, and how do I compare in these areas to other people who are being evaluated in the same stack as I am? Students who have me also have these other people, so how do I compare to the rest of their teachers? Then the next thing I try to do is look for patterns. That is, if I'm really high in 5 areas, are those related? So are they telling me the same thing 5 times? Or if I'm really low in 5 areas, are they related? For example, I tried to go through and analyze this at the beginning of the year to have some sessions to help you bring up a lot of scores at one time. And so some of them have to do with classroom management. Do you give papers back in a timely way? Do you start and end class on time? Do you use class time well? So some of them are they're all related to just how do you manage your class. If you got your 50 minutes, how does that go? Are you late? Do you tell long stories and not get to the point of the class? Or how are you using those 50 minutes? And those usually come together in a configuration. So, and then the clarity, there's a whole series of questions on clarity. That your lectures are clear, that the purpose of the course is clear, that your materials sort of match. There's the idea that tests should go with what you're talking about in class, and that if you have a book, the book should somehow all be related to that so that you can follow it. So there's some questions have to do with clarity and cohesion. So if you're below yourself or below the mean for your department or whatever your peer group is, look for a configuration, because sometimes you can fix it all just by doing a couple of things, and you put those together. Okay, I put down here key questions for evaluation. A lot of times, third year review people will look at these last 4 questions. 18 is, do you pray in class? And we don't make a big to-do about that, but that is just such an easy fix if you don't just do. So it's not something that requires a pedagogical class, or it's not something that requires a complete analysis of your syllabus. It's just start class with prayer. Either you do or you don't. So since it's a value, just do. I haven't always done this, I'll have to admit. But I finally got to the place where I thought, why am I not doing this? And why is this a big deal? I definitely do not think that you should take 20 minutes out of a class period to have a long, complex devotional that's not related to your class. I think probably the ideal thing is to have a pithy devotional that's deeply meaningful spiritually, that also relates to the content of the class period. That's probably a high goal to reach for, 4 times a day for your whole semester. But take prayer requests, say a prayer, model good prayer for your class, call on them to pray if they are so inclined, and it can take 2 minutes. So it's not just that you're trying to check it off, but in a sense, why not check it off? I mean, it's something our students actually value. You hear them talk a lot about, oh, I was so impressed when I came here and we could actually pray in class. So it's something students value. It doesn't have to take a lot of time. It doesn't have to be something that you spend a lot of time preparing. And it's a very, very easy fix. If you're getting a bad score on that, you can be in the 100th percentile. You can be a 5.0 by the end of the semester by just doing it. And if they say you don't do it and you know you do, that just means they come in late, right? But somebody's going to be there on time. Somebody will vote for you. So that's 18. 19 is integration of faith and learning, which I think is a lot harder. But I don't think students actually know what that is. So unless you foreground it a lot, okay, now we're going to integrate faith and learning. And here's how this applies to your Christian faith. Or something almost that explicit. They will give you a good score on 19 if you get a good score on 18. So if you have a meaningful devotion at the beginning of class, they equate that with integration of faith and learning. So those two scores usually go together. There are some classes where you can have a wonderful, and I think a lot of people do, have a wonderful discussion about how this does relate to Christian faiths. I used to teach contemporary literature, and you couldn't really teach that class without faith integration. Grammar, not so much. You know, you can get all the way through the end of grammar, and, you know, God created language. That's about, you know, it's about as profound as it gets. So, some classes, it almost has to happen. It happens so naturally, it almost has to happen. Some classes, you gotta weave it in there and make it explicit. Two is compare yourself to other, is how this teacher compares to other teachers, right?
Overall effectiveness. Overall teacher.
Oh, overall teaching effectiveness. Okay, if you're a busy administrator and you're trying to get a feel for this, for the quality of this faculty member, wouldn't you just go straight to that question? Because students have a lot of teachers, and they have been in your class most of the semester, so they're gonna say how they think your overall teaching is. And this kind of gets you out of that, oh, they weren't there when I passed the test back, and so they didn't know I had it graded in 2 weeks' time, so they scored me down on that, or whatever. This is just their overall impression of you. So I think it's a good one to look at. And if you're not getting a good score in there, you might be thinking, well, what am I doing exactly? Go back to the rest of it and see, why did that not come out to be a good score? It leaves a lot of interpretation to you, but it is one that administrators like to look at because it's so pithy. Okay, and 21 then is compared to other teachers I've had at Lee University. I'm a very good teacher. So again, you're getting that comparison by looking at the context of your statistics with your department and your tenure group and the university. But this is the student's opinion on that, and so it's also an interesting one. It doesn't necessarily help you get a focus on what you can do better, but it is one that carries a lot of weight, so it's one that you kind of, even though it doesn't maybe speak to you as much, it's one that you kind of need to be looking at. Okay, look at the one I gave you, and what would you say is something that that teacher might want to be thinking about? No, not written comments, I'm sorry.
Reworking the subject matters.
Okay, where do you see that?
That's question 6.
Okay, question 6, a little bit low on question 6. What else?
Question 7 is motivation.
Okay, motivation.
Motivates learning about the subject.
Okay,
Use the class time.
what?
Using class time effectively.
Okay, using class time effectively.
Feedback for the student learning.
Okay, there's several questions about feedback. Do you give feedback in a way that encourages students to talk to you? Do you give feedback quickly? Do you save all the papers up till the end of the semester and grade them all the last minute and hand them back? Or do you grade them in a reasonable time after they've been turned in? All that has to do, again, with kind of that management aspect, the organization aspect, timing things, scheduling things. Anything else you see on there that sort of stands out? If you can, I think you could look at this, given some time, and figure out what are the key areas that really need to be improved. And you could, again, because this is pieced together from various evaluations, there might not be themes in here because I'm picking one page from one and one page from another, but you can sort of look at it and see what would be some key things to work on that would improve in a lot of different areas. So maybe when students say your lectures aren't clear, do you know what that means? They don't understand them. That can be either because you're using jargon from your discipline that they haven't learned yet, or because some concept that's easy for you is not easy for them. But I think if you don't do well in that area, it's really worth looking at the written comments then and seeing, okay, what are they saying over here? Because I think that kind of, the way I look at the written comments is they sort of flesh out what they said in the statistics. So if you get a little dip somewhere, you should look over in the written comments and see what do they mean by that, because they'll usually explain it to you. They'll make it more explicit in the written comments. And the way I would do this is figure out those areas which are most, maybe the low-hanging fruit. What can you improve the most by making some changes, and make that a goal. Put that in your PAC for next year, and think about ways that you can work on that. And you probably don't want to use raise my score as your goal. That could be the way you're going to prove that you reached your goal. But, maybe improve the clarity of my classroom presentations. Maybe give some ideas about how you're going to do that, and then use those questions and apply to that as data for how you're going to know when you get there. Okay, so any questions about that? Oh, there's a question about where are these they're in Portico. Do you know where they are? They're in administrative apps, and it took me a long time to find them. Because there is a place down somewhere that says semester course evaluations, but that's not them. They're in administrative apps, and there are a couple of things that they are not. And then faculty evaluation is what it's under. And you can find the statistical part, not everybody, that your written comments aren't posted there. Okay, so, written comments. I usually see, I think this is surprising and it's not intuitive, but I usually see that students are kinder in their statistical part than they are in the written comments. You'd think it would be the other way around. You can hide in that big bundle of statistics, and so if you want to get somebody, why would you score them down low on that when you don't show up? But most people are very positive. Everybody's a 3 or a 4. We hardly get to 2. But then you have all these 4s and 5s, and you turn it over, and oh, there are the written comments. You're just like, oh my gosh. So I usually gotta take my time before I look at them, take a deep breath. So they tend to be more personal and more varied from adoration to loathing. And again, disregard the outliers. It's harder when it's not a number. It's harder when it's a person's actual comment that they took the time to write down about you, whether they love you or don't love you. It's harder to ignore, but it's still the same kind of data. So you do have to ignore it if you're really going to think about how to improve your teaching. This is a good example. I got a comment on a student course evaluation a couple of semesters ago saying, you over-explain papers to us. We're English majors. We know how to do this. So just don't spoon feed us on how to do our papers. Oh, okay. I can do that. So the next semester, I didn't tell them anything. You have a paper due, and it's supposed to be this long, and here's kind of the area of the topic. So write a paper. So then they're like, the next semester's like, you didn't tell us nearly enough what you wanted on that paper. So I obviously overcorrected on the comment of one student who perhaps was a cocky writer, and and it was kind of an anomaly. So you really have to be careful not to let them drive you off the road with their comments. And the ones that are the most articulate and the most, maybe personal, are the ones that just, okay, I'll do anything you say, just don't hurt me again. But you have to be really careful, I think, not to overcorrect, and because they're not statistics. I think they have a lot of power over us, even if we can see it's only one person. And it's not the class, so not to get that emotional reaction that I always have. Also, I think it's important to read through them all and then put them away. I don't care if they're 99.9% wonderful. That 0.9% that's not wonderful is the one that's I guess it'll be 0.1, forget the math. But anyway, that tiny fraction, that one comment out of 300 that's negative, or that appears to you to be negative, that's the one you're going to think about and ponder and worry about and defend yourself against, and wake up in the middle of the night and think that I just know that is not me Well, that's why I think it's kind of good to read them all and then put them away. Most of us don't read them before Christmas, but because they're emotionally draining. It doesn't matter how experienced you are or how good they are overall, they kind of take a whack at you. You leave the class thinking, that was wonderful. I walk on water. I'm just such a good teacher. I feel good about this semester. Then you get your evaluations and there are like 2 comments in there that are just so deflating. So, then as I said before, I think the main thing you need to do is look for correspondence between the statistics and what they're telling you. So they'll say your lectures aren't clear. They'll give you a rating, your lectures aren't clear. And then they'll tell you in the statistical comments, you go too fast, or you don't give headings, or you don't use PowerPoint, or you don't give us an outline, or we feel like you're wondering. So they'll tell you in the written comments what's not clear about your lectures. There's almost always that information that's provided for you, almost always. And then, as I said, create teaching goals that are based on that combination. I didn't duplicate any written comments for you, but I thought I'd share with you some that I think are kind of common, maybe not the exact wording, but the kinds of comments that students often make. I won't read them word for word, but this set has a lot of comments about the correspondence of things in the class. So you lecture on one thing, but you test on something else. Or you give us reading, and all the test comes from the reading. Or you assign this reading, but all the test comes from your lecture, and we don't see the relationship between the lecture and the book. So they want things in the class to matter. They want all your reading to matter. They want their tests to come from somewhere that you've talked about in class. So I think that whole thing about here's where we're going with this class, and here's one way we're going to get there. And you need to do this, and this will work in this way. A really explanation, and maybe re-explanation, and re-explanation, so that they know for sure why you're doing what you're doing. They get lost in the class. We see relationships that they don't see. David and I teach a class that's kind of a hodgepodge. It's kind of a series of learning objectives that need to be covered for the state matrix. And so it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And so we can see that how those things are related because they're related by deep concepts of language. But students don't have those deep concepts of language, so they feel like we're jumping from one topic to another, to another, to another. And so it's up to us to clarify as we go along. Okay, we're doing this because of this. And here's what I want you to get out of this, because it's going to be related to this in this way. And then go back when you get to that part. And it may seem laborious to you, like you are just so over-explaining this. But if they're telling you you're not clear, then over-explaining may be the next step. And then try to find the right balance. Almost everybody has comments about either they don't have enough activity in class, they don't have enough engaged learning, or they don't know what the engaged learning is for. They have a lot of activities, but they don't get what the point of it is. So again, it's sometimes the need to almost over-explain, to set so much context in class that you feel like you're going too far with it. Or sometimes you want them to sort of be out there not knowing exactly what you're doing because you want them to make some sort of discovery, and then you can kind of bring them back and explain what that was all about. Use class time more efficiently. Students, I think this is an important thing for you to know. There's a myth across faculty worldwide that if you're hard, students will give you bad evaluations. We actually did some statistical analysis. By we, I mean Jason Van Hook, not me, because I already told you I don't do statistics. Anyway, there was actually an inverse correlation between grade distribution, between a high grade distribution and high student course evaluations. And if you look at what they tell you, they want to work in your class. They want you to challenge them. They want you to give them things to do that are meaningful, that'll help them learn. And I think that we have this idea that if we work them too hard, they'll give us bad evaluations, but it turns out that it's really almost the opposite that's true. They don't want to just be in over their head with no explanation, but if you can give them challenging work that they can see they're learning, they do want that. They do ask for that. And you can see in comment after comment after comment, students are asking you to give them a bit of a challenge. Again, not without scaffolding, but okay, again, I would love a course calendar, organization, a better outline, and knowing when and where to turn in papers. They get confused. My students this morning were all confused because I asked them to submit something on Moodle, which to me does not seem like rocket science. But now they have Moodle, and they have Pathbright, and they have hard copy, and they have email. So there are a lot of different ways they can get something to you, and sometimes they get confused about which one you asked for, because different teachers are asking them for different things. So again, that kind of, he's just telling you, he just wants you to make it clear. He'll do what you say, he just wants you to make it clear. He's confused about it. Let's see. Receive graded papers back in a timely fashion. This is huge. If you're a learner, getting feedback right away is huge. And that's it. Again, that's one of those, it's like praying in class. You can do this. And, I know it's harder in some disciplines than it is in others, but at some point, just do it. You just have to make the sacrifice and sit down with that big old stack of papers and grade them and turn them back. And I taught comp for years, and I know that it is painful to have 200 freshman comps, and you just have to do it. You just have to get them done. But it's the grunt work of your discipline. But they have to get that feedback before they move on. So again, that's an easy one to fix. It's not rocket science. It's just hard work. It's just like, it's just like losing weight or running marathon, whatever. Just do it. So here's another thing to think about. I think when you look at these, if you go through and some of the classes, we need more group work, we need more group assignments, give us more collaborative work, and the other half of the class is saying, thank you so much for not making us work in groups, thank you so much for giving us nice clear lectures and not making us discover. Well, you just have different kinds of learners in your class. You're probably not going to ever be able to satisfy 100% of them with any one kind of teaching style. So again, if you see things in your student course evaluations that are contradictory, she goes too fast. This is mine. She goes way too fast. She goes way too slow. So, okay, I think I am going somewhere in the middle. And, and so in that case, it's kind of good. I mean, you've had everybody saying one or the other, then you have to think about, do we need to change this class somehow so that they're ability grouped in some way? So there are things, don't let it get under your skin, in other words, when there are things in there that you can't help. David and I are teaching a 7:45 class. Well, I can already know that some of our student comments are going to be, this class is too early. Well, guess what? 7:45 comes at the same time for us. Plus, most of my students are going to be teachers, and what time do they think school starts? This is for life, not just for this semester. So, but things you can't change. They'll criticize your textbook, and you didn't choose it, the department did, or they'll criticize, whatever. That things you can't change, things that you don't have control over. So don't let those get under your skin and really kind of go look for the parts that you can change. Okay.
So the course calendar, do you think it's better to, begin the semester, you want to have speakers, maybe you want to have a video, you don't have all your speakers lined out, and you don't need, you know kind of how the course is going to go, generally. I think it's better to go, what happens if you get too specific then, there's some student over there that's really anal and they say, well, you change that date. I know exams, I try to keep the exams about the same days, I know they remember the classes. But with what the activity is every day, I think it's better to go with, this is kind of the thing we're talking about, this is kind of the topic we're talking about, or to give the specific reading and activity for every day throughout the semester.
I think that's a good question, because I think you often do get feedback from students that they're expecting one thing and you did something else. So I think it's really important. For one thing, I think your department chair probably talks about this a lot, but you need to separate the syllabus, which is the objectives of the course and what you're going to be teaching in the course, from the daily plan. The syllabus is your contract. It's a legal document that holds you to that with the student. The daily syllabus, I always put subject to change at the top. And I tell them at the beginning of the semester when I hand it out, I tell them, we will keep the test dates on the days that they're assigned to. So that's the framework of this class. We will have 4 tests and they will be on these days. The rest is flexible because, for one thing, I don't know how fast you're going to learn this stuff. And I don't want to go to the next thing until you've learned the one that's the foundation for that. This is the grammar class. So if you don't know what subjects are, I don't see how we can go on to complex sentences. So we're going to do that first, and we're going to work on it until you get it, because it's the building block for what comes next. And you may take longer than the class last semester, or you may not take as long. So I try to explain it in that way. And also, then, you know, if you're going to have speakers, okay, I really want to bring speakers into this class. I don't have them all confirmed yet, because they all have lives too, and we're asking a favor of them. So this part of the syllabus could shift. As long as, I think they'll stay with you, as long as you kind of let them know that up front, and as long as you kind of explain what the learning objectives are of that part anyway. So why are you doing this? Why are you bringing this speaker in? And why is he coming in now? And I think if you make that, I think it just helps if you explain things to them, if you make it explicit. I think sometimes we want to be smooth, and so we kind of sweep the rough stuff under the rug and try to act like, I don't know, smoke and mirrors. This is all going according to plan. When really it's not. And I think they like it better. You don't want to come and ravel in front of them, but I think they like it better if they know you are in control of this, and it is going according to plan. It's just not the plan A. Yeah, other questions? Yeah, Katie.
So this is kind of specific, but I can't figure it out, so I'll ask it. My number 20, I'm always happier with my score there compared to the university average, which is overall teaching effectiveness, than I am with my answer to number 21, which is the question that asks them to compare me to the university. So I'm wondering what that discrepancy might mean, because it's asking the same thing. So clearly the students are thinking something different when they do it. And I'm wondering, what do you think they're thinking in 20 versus 21?
And 20 is overall teaching effectiveness, right? I think they're thinking about what your class is like every day. What is it like to go in there? Is there a variety? Is she nice to us? Does she give us our papers back? Do we have activities that are interesting? Are we learning? So I think they're thinking about the whole scope of your course. And the next one, I think they're thinking about, how does she compare to...
Oh, I'm learning. I just gave it up a long time ago.
They're thinking about specific people that they've had, and they're casting you next to their all-stars. So I think that's the difference. So
It's worth noting that last question is statistically problematic, right? I mean, 76% of the university is above average. It's like Lake Wobegon of universities.
oh, I'm surprised it's only 76%. As hard as we were.
We can do better.
Yeah, really, some of these questions, I mean, that's what I mean about the statistical part. They're really high. The ratings in the statistical part are really high when you think about actual life. And so as we keep working on driving everybody's scores up, so, you know, we have these workshops so you can get better scores. So as you get better scores, well, you know, if everybody can't be above average, there's got to be an average. So if we're all trying to be above average, I don't know.
Well, as department chairs too, I mean, what happens is students will come in and complain, right, about a
That's very
professor,
true.
and then when the stats come in, the professor says, look, I don't know, they're really good.
I think they really are.
And they just give you the benefit of the doubt on these evaluations.
Yeah, I think they really do. Yeah.
I've noticed a phenomenon among majors and major courses is that students stop evaluating the course and just reevaluate me the that have had me for 4 years, and what I do in that specific semester doesn't really impact anything. Is there any thoughts about that?
I know exactly what you mean. I have to say, I had a point when I was teaching full time before I was an administrator. Students would say that I prayed in class, even though I didn't. Because they're not reading it; they're just saying, "Oh yeah, she's good. I like her. I've had her before."
Right.
They're not thinking, "I don't think she did pray in class."
Right.
And I'm on the other extreme. I try to pray in class, and they say I don't pray in class. And I
Right.
try.
And you get like
I
a
never do.
And you get a reputation in your little department about being the organized one or the disorganized one.
Exactly,
So even if you're
exactly.
super organized for one class, it doesn't matter because you
Yeah.
got a reputation.
I think that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that's true. I do think that if you have the same students over and over again, they become less discriminating about that class and more just you.
I will say, one thing I've noticed sounds like it's sort of trying to fluff your grades a little bit, but when you are intentionally doing something that is about these questions, name it out loud in the
Oh, I
classroom,
agree.
right?
Yeah.
If you're taking a moment to integrate faith and learning, say it out loud. I even jokingly say, question 19, let's talk about integration of faith and learning, and I sort of drop that as a joke. But you bet that if I am doing that a lot, and I mention integration of faith and learning, I get a better score. So
Yeah,
if
I
you're
totally agree.
if you're making an effort to be more organized or to get papers handed back early, say, I know I'm not normally good at this, but here they are, and you might be able to fight some of that.
Well, and I think that's legitimate. It's not just bumping up your score, but students often don't
They don't recognize it.
get it when you're, I don't know, when you're asking them to think critically, or when you're asking them to integrate faith and learning. They don't know that's what you're doing. And so when they're asked that question, they don't know you've done it. They often don't know you've done it unless you tell them. We used to have this, when we were doing the QEP on critical thinking, we're like, okay, this is critical skill number 1. And really foregrounded it. And we had, our scores went off the charts for critical thinking, just because we said that every day. This is critical skill number 1. So, you're thinking critically, how does that feel? So I don't think that's cheating at all. In fact, I think that's, in a lot of their comments, I think that's what they're asking for. And they're not that reluctant to do what we ask them to do if they know what it is, and if they know what it's for, if we're clear with them on that.
One dilemma that I bump into a little bit is that I would like for my students, especially in the faith integration one, to have a more nuanced view of what integrating faith is than just doing a Bible study lesson or something that you're attaching to something that you're teaching. But I feel like if I say anything about that, I'm coaching for the evaluations, and I can't do that. I'm not supposed to do that either, So I feel like I'm in a bit of dilemma, if I do it early enough in the semester, then I'm not, they're not going to see this as an obvious ploy to get them to.
I think you should do it the day before the evaluation. Really, this is such an abstract concept, not many of us know what is happening to us, right?
I've gotten low scores on this in the capstone, which is all
Oh,
about.
that's all.
But we do it every single day. We talk about how faith and art mix, and they just, I don't know if we talk about that. What? It's the whole course.
It's the whole course. It's kind of like on the NESI, we ask our students if they have a freshman seminar, and if they do service, and if they have a capstone, all of which they do in order to graduate, and they don't all seem to notice that. So I don't think you can bold this too much and really, you're teaching them faith and learning skills as they go along. And I think one of the things we discovered when we put the capstones in initially was we thought we were doing faith integration all along, but when we asked them to do it in the capstone sort of independently, they had no idea what we were even talking about. So we realized, they didn't get it. That's what we were doing all along.
So I still find it difficult to use the numeric evaluations.
That's because you understand them.
I mean, I can make meaningful changes to my courses and sort of the strategies that I employ from the written comments. I mean, it's just I can see things that need to be addressed. It's difficult for me to see that with the written or with the numeric evaluations. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's
I agree with that, because I think we squash the scores so much.
I mean, I've
because
noticed
of
that if, you know, I've had a class my first year that, you know, they didn't like me.
How is it even possible?
And they gave me bad evaluations, right? But they actually learned quite a bit, and, you know, we ended the semester on a good note. And I found that, you know, if they like me, they rate me better. And it doesn't really have a whole lot to do with
What you're actually teaching.
what I actually do in the class. It really has more to do with do my students like me. As far as just sort of the average, you know, scores on the evaluations. But the written comments, on the other hand, those are useful every semester, even when they like me or don't like me. There's something useful there.
I have to agree with that. I think the statistical part is helpful because it's more objective. Maybe it isn't, but it's objective because it's a number.
So,
But
I
always think
guess,
comments are
you know, let me follow up with another question. So I'm in my fourth year now, approaching tenure in 2 years, Lord willing. So am I committing professional suicide by focusing more on the written scores, or I mean, you know, in these tenure decisions, is it all about the numerics, or
It
is
really
it?
isn't.
I mean, what?
It really isn't all about the numerics, and I think as administrators, I may not be speaking for everybody, but we like to read that more. It's more interesting. The written comments are more interesting and they're more discriminating. And so, because our variance on the statistics is squashed into such a small, you know, like it's between a 3.9 and then you're below average because the average is a 4.1. Well, that's crazy, really. If you're a 3.9 and you're worried about that because the department average is a 4.1, you're doing that well. And students are saying you're doing it well. But the numeric points do matter. I mean, if you're getting really low scores on passing papers back and, you know, all those kind of mechanical things that you could just do if you cared about your class, you could just do. That doesn't look good. But as far as going through and parsing those, most people don't. Most people don't. If you're gonna look through a giant file of stuff, it's not more interesting to read. What did the students say about this guy? Especially if they, you know, if the people on the evaluation team don't know you, so I would say no.
Well, there's certain courses that in a department tend to always get lower scores. So, for example, in behavioral social sciences, we teach stats. They're not slamming it. They don't, I mean, people in behavioral social sciences are not math majors, and they don't like taking stats. And you're just gonna automatically get lower scores even if you take, or if in, I don't know, biotheology, you teach ethics. They don't like the way, you know, they don't like your reviews. So you know that there's certain, as a department chair, know that certain teachers who have to teach those courses are gonna get lower scores than those.
That's true.
Carolyn, as someone who's seen a lot of these, is it correct to assume, from what I understand, that problems that are numerical are very obvious? Like when you see
That's true.
professor, right? I mean, it's not going to be somebody who's 0.3 below or above. It's like they're getting like
Yeah.
1.8 or something like that in their averages.
Yeah, if you're way off, a point off or something like that, if you're way off, that is gonna pop out on the page for sure. Whereas you have to read the whole comments and kind of sort of look for a theme. Oh, I don't think he's very organized, or, you know, it's not a question, is he organized? Well, 90% say yes. That's pretty good, that's pretty organized. But you have to read through all those pages and say, yeah, you know, I'm thinking, this makes it look like he's not very organized, but that's not the question. So it is harder to extrapolate from that, so that's a good point. Yeah, any place you're really off on those numbers in a big way, I think that's something you need to pay attention to, not just to be a better teacher, which is good, but also.
And having really high numbers is
Evaluation.
also questionable, because that means that students are discriminating between questions.
Well, that's what he was saying.
Oh,
They
yeah,
just-
but it's sometimes
they
slow,
just
but
like
it's
you.
also, yeah, because it's very high.
But what you said about liking you, that's good. That's good if they like you. If they like you, you know, it covers a multitude of sins or
But that's low.
evaluation questions. Covers a multitude of evaluation questions.
Oh, like
If
covers a
they like
multi-
you,
okay.
yeah, if they like you.
It is interesting to note that there's almost no discrepancy on number 21 between tenure stats and university stats.
Well, actually, when we started breaking these out, the ideas people had about it turned out not really to be true, because sometimes your newer faculty have newer material, they have newer methods, they know more technology, they're more on the age level of the students, and sometimes they do better. So,
You know, faculty get to pick, tenure faculty get to pick one course.
That's true.
And they pick their favorite course,
So,
if you're smart.
right. So even with that handicap and that favor, they're still
yeah,
averaging the
it's still
same.
averaging
as
the same.
So the tenure stats are the tenured professors or the professors in your tenured
It's all,
class? Like I'm not tenured, so I'm looking at not tenured
right,
faculty.
yeah, not tenured faculty, university-wide,
Okay,
not just your department.
okay.
Okay, any other questions, comments, arguments? I mean, everybody knows these are flawed, but, we have them, so, and there's, you can get some information out of them. So not just for evaluation, but for actually improving the teaching. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.